But sometimes I'm like, well, was it law of attraction? Because I've been thinking about it, or is it a genuine sign from Gus? I don't know. So
Yep. I think
yeah.
it's a little bit of everything a lot of the times. Yeah. It just everything's working for us way more than we realize. And I think we allow it when we relax and let go, but our tendency is to try to control things and make the outcome, force it into existence.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Carpe Diem Living the Podcast. I am your host, Shane Gitmed, and today we have Haley Hoover, who's actually a neighbor, basically, of mine. We're in the same region of California, which I thought was really funny. So welcome to the show, Haley.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, neighbor. I'm glad to know that. It's awesome.
Yeah, I know, you're just like up the road.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Awesome. But yeah, Haley is a success coach and intuitive artist. And I just think that's so cool. Can you touch base on what does an intuitive artist mean as far as in your field?
Ooh, what a fun question. So it's really interesting. I've actually been working on an article explaining intuitive art and the actual concept of it. It's not something you'd study in art history, and it's relatively new as a type of art, but there's actually a ton of different intuitive artists out there doing it professionally who have wildly different styles. For me, being an intuitive artist, it's more of the principle behind the work than the outcome of the work, which is beautiful because that's my whole philosophy on life and business and what I share with my clients. So rather than approaching the canvas and saying, I want to make this bird that looks a certain way or whatever, I approach the canvas and I'm just very open. And, if I feel like the color orange, I'll put some orange, but maybe I'm feeling purple and a circle, and it's very intuitive as it suggests, just whatever comes up. And my work specifically has a lot of layers, which is really fun. And I guess I've been doing that for years, but then early 2020, I actually found out that I can hold an intention for the painting and actually receive a message through it. So that's a super fun thing that I do with a lot of my clients is they ask a question and I channel the advice through a paintings, which is really cool. Kind of different.
I love that. This is the first time I've ever met an intuitive artist. And yeah, I remember in high school, I believe I took an art class. Yeah. One of them was an art class and I took a pottery class even, or ceramics, I'm sorry. And it just did not go well. Like drawing a bird. That's why when you said drawing a bird, like I remember I was told, okay, draw a rabbit. And it was just like, not the thing. But I feel like if I would have gone with intuitive art, where it's like just kind of going with the flow, where you have more freedom to kind of do what just comes to you naturally, I think I would have done a lot better with that.
Yeah. And it's really funny because I've had people say like, oh, you're an artist, you can draw, a self-portrait of me, right? And I'm like, oh, no. I don't find that enjoyable. It's tedious and I really have to focus and strain, and then it's never what you had in mind, and so you're always messing up. So anyway, yeah, it's funny because people are like, oh, you're an artist, no, I don't do realistic, I do intuitive. So
yeah, it's very abstract, a lot more fun, right? Yeah,
very abstract. Yeah, there's obviously this one behind me,
beautiful,
but thank you. But yeah, very abstract, very in the moment. And I always tell my students, I actually have a quiz I'm working on for my website, and it's what layer of business are you as it relates to a layer of art, because the first layer of my painting may be orange, like completely orange, and then however I feel in 30 minutes, we may cover up all of that orange but one little square. So it just changes, which to me is such a great metaphor of life and business, that you have to feel into the moment, feel what feels right, check in with your intuition. Maybe it was right to have all orange yesterday, but today we're feeling more purple, and that's going to suit you. That orange was not a mistake. It was a layer of your process. It was part of your journey. So a lot of metaphors blended into the artwork there.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love that. Cause it just totally makes me feel like, as people, like we're like onions. We have so many layers to us. We're not just one flat, there's so many things to us as just in general, whether it's your personality, your business. And I feel like more people need to see things that way because things aren't black and white, and it's can't just put things in a box. So I think that's so cool.
And I think we really get caught up on the outcomes. My life is supposed to look a certain way. I'm supposed to look a certain way. And then also if anything changes, then we're automatically like, oh, well, everything was a waste of time. Other than that, that was a failure. And, intuitive art has really taught me that no, everything happens for a reason. Everything's in the moment. Releasing our like fixation on perfection and the outcome. And that just really opens you up to freedom and being present and all of those beautiful feelings that we actually really want to experience more than a perfect outcome.
Right. And, it just made me think of even my son, that kids are more like intuitive artists themselves.
Yes.
They just kind of just go with, okay, like I'm picturing the other day when my son was coloring. And of course, naturally, I mean, we're adults. We're like, okay, draw within or color within the lines. You have to, the grass is supposed to be green, but why are you coloring it yellow? Like, it's so funny. But I've just got to a point where I'm, you know what, if that's how you feel, if that's what you want to do, go for it.
Yes, because then it becomes more about the act of expression than it is looking a certain way, which, that I spent years of my life trying to, be who I was rather than trying to be who everyone told me I was supposed to be. So by letting your son have yellow grass, you're letting him be himself. So that's awesome.
Oh my gosh. So I know that you wrote books before and you're a #1 release author. Yeah. Do you want to tell us about what your books are about and how you came about into this business of being a success coach?
Yeah, actually, lots of funny stories, a couple different funny stories. So I wanted to be an author for as long as I can remember. That was actually what I went to second grade and career day as. I wanted to be an author. An author and an artist, actually, I should say. And it was really cute. My mom actually helped me come up with an outfit that embodied both. So that was kudos to her creativity because I feel like that's an interesting mixture. But yeah, so I spent, I would say, the majority of my 20s. I wanted to be an author and an artist, but specifically the author part. And I took creative writing in college. I took a couple classes. And when I went to graduate, I graduated with a public relations degree, but I talked to my writing professor and I was like, look, PR is cool, but I really want to write a book. I think I'm going to get my master's in creative writing. And I love him for this. He looked at me and he goes, well, why would you get your master's? And I said, so I can write a book. And he goes, well, if you want to write a book, go write a book. So I'm like, okay. Yeah. So I thought it was that simple. But over, the course of a decade, I started and got really close to finishing probably 10 different manuscripts, but they never went anywhere. And the more I was studying the publishing industry, the more I was getting overwhelmed because I found out, well, you have to pitch your book deal, first of all. So there's that whole process. But then even if you do land the book deal, it's really, the publisher's really more interested in how many books you can market and sell for them. And so there's this whole piece, you need to have a business set up and a lot of followers before you pitch the book deal, right? So it's kind of all this backwards chicken and egg thing for me. And so all that did was confuse me and delay me, which was meant to happen, but that's fine. And so in the meantime, I had started a blog in college and I really loved that. And I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And so I found coaching. I invested, became certified, loved it. I thought, oh, this is bringing everything I want to write about to life. Because I was a super big, I mean, as long as I can remember, I've read self-help and psychology and all of that. And so that's what I generally like to write about. And so I was able to bring that to life through coaching. And in the meantime, I'm in and out of PR, trying to make coaching full-time. Well, in middle of 2019, my boyfriend and I quit our jobs and moved to New Zealand. We bought a van. Yeah, we bought a van and traveled around New Zealand for about a year, which was super fun. And during that time, I had already lived abroad in Australia a year, several years before that. So when we got to New Zealand, I said, look, I want to remember everything. And when we go back to the States, it's almost like it didn't happen. It's very like, was that a dream? It's kind of time warpish. So the whole time we were traveling, I wrote I wrote about our journey, and I wrote, who we were meeting, because you're meeting so many people and doing so many things. And so we came back to the States in May of 2020. So we did the first initial lockdown of the pandemic in New Zealand, which was super fun and a different story. But we got back in May, and I said, okay, before I, go back to work, before I do anything, I'm putting these stories into a book just for me and you. And so we can remember it. And so I found a website where you could print one copy, and it was like $40. And I was like, okay. So I'm formatting for about a week. I'm formatting my journals, kind of combing through them, putting them in order, and formatting them for this book. Well, I get the book, and it's super cool to have your work in a hard copy. And in the meantime, I had written another full-length book for my business. It was fully finished, sitting there, and I was asking my coach, I don't know what to do with that book. I don't know, how do I get published? It was this big, after all these years of studying it and wanting it, it was this big mystery. I was overwhelmed. And she said, well, Haley, don't you have a background in design? I said, yeah, I've been doing graphic design for a long time. And she said, okay, well, you could design your book. And I said, okay, there's a thought. And she said, and you come from public relations, so you know how to market things, right? And I said, yeah. And she goes, well, why don't you self-publish? And I'm just like, what?
Just putting all the pieces together.
Yes. Yeah. And so I basically was like, well, I'll take this New Zealand book because it's just for fun. There's no pressure, no outcomes, right? And I think, let's just see, what would it be like to put it on Amazon? Is that a hard process? Well, I designed the cover, had a blast, put it on Amazon all within 2 days. And I'm just laughing hysterically. And I'm like, Mom, I just published a book on Amazon. It was so easy. How? Oh my gosh. Like, it's one of those, okay, what have I been doing for the last 10 years? And so I put it on Facebook just kind of as a, oh my gosh, look, I'm on Amazon. Like, just kind of a amusement, really. Well, then people started buying my book. And I'm like, oh no, I didn't expect anyone to buy it. I haven't edited it. I didn't write it for that. So overnight, I become a #1 new Amazon new release author, which was super cool. But then I was like, okay, we need to edit and change some names and some details. And so long story short, I put it back up. But what that ended up doing, so then this is the Hippie Still Exists is the name of it, in case you're interested. It is definitely not edited by a professional. So there's lots of typos, but I like the rawness of it still. Now that you know the story behind it. But then I thought, well, I made an ebook years before. Let's put that on Amazon. And so I did. And it's a beautiful journal. And I designed it and everything. And that was cool. So then people started asking me to help them self-publish their books, which has been this whole other journey. Well, now I actually have been able to combine my success coaching with helping people get their books out into the world, specifically spirituality and self-help. But what was happening was these women were coming to me and they really had this heart's message to put out as an author, as a book. Well, that is also the same message that they wanted to share as a coach and how they wanted to change lives. And so now I'm able to work with people to do both at once. And so anyway, long story, but it's been a super fun process of just letting things unfold naturally. When we're forcing things, like I was trying to get published, and I couldn't get it to happen. And then I just kind of let go and had fun, and everything just kind of magically fell into place. So it's one of those great stories of trusting and letting go.
Yes, no, I love all of that, because that just reminds me of just how when you're looking at your, what you're trying to do with your career, a lot of people think your path is so linear. It's like, nope, just go straight. But what you don't realize is all the things that are happening along the way, these are all stepping stones towards what the ultimate goal is. And then after all is said and done, you're like, oh my gosh, my journey was like a roller coaster. You just don't even know which way it's going to go. So it reminds me a lot of my own journey. And I'm sure a lot of people can relate. It's like you have this end game in mind, but little do you know, all the fun is in the little details, like the things you go through. And sometimes that's what you need, is a coach, someone from the outside to kind of be like, hey, instead of waiting for XYZ, just go for it.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was looking at your site, I was like, where you said you can have it all. The other day, I actually had a conversation with one of my own coaches, and they're like, yes, you absolutely can have it all. Like, why wait for us, someone to tell you like, oh, this is what you should do. For instance, if someone wanted, like for me, I'm going to be a holistic health coach this year. Like I'm officially going to have that certification.
Yay!
Yeah. And I remember someone was like, why, like your experience speaks more than just what a piece of paper is going to say. That's why when your professor told you like, oh, why are you waiting for your master's to do that? Why don't you just write a book?
Yeah, I loved it. Yeah. And so I guess the professor and my coach both were big proponents, and just that whole mentality of like, well, just go do it.
Like what's holding you back? Yeah. But sometimes you just need that nudge, just someone else to give you that thing, or signs from the universe. I love seeing angel numbers and different things. I mean, I don't know about you, but sometimes I'm like, well, was it law of attraction? Because I've been thinking about it, or is it a genuine sign from Gus? I don't know. So
yeah, I think it's a little bit of everything a lot of the times. Yeah. It just, everything's working for us way more than we realize. And I think we allow it when we relax and let go, but our tendency is to try to control things and make the outcome, force it into existence, so yeah.
And I love the title Hippies Still Exist, because that's genuinely what you did. You were like nomading it around. And I mean, that sounds like such a fun adventure, just being able to pick up and be like, I want to be here right now for 6 months or a year, or whatever that is.
Yes.
Yeah. How was your experience coming back during COVID?
It was very interesting experiencing, because we watched COVID unfold from New Zealand. And so the fun thing about that is that we were one of the last countries for it to hit. And so we're watching, Europe, because we had friends with us who were from Europe, and they were, their parents were freaking out. And then our parents would call and freak out. We're like, I don't know, we're just going to the beach, But then it did hit us. It was about 2 weeks after the week in March, where I guess it was this week, actually, we're at the 1 year anniversary, where everything shut down in the States. And so it was 2 weeks later when it hit New Zealand. But the beautiful thing about New Zealand, they actually ended up being a role model country for handling COVID. They actually annihilated it while we were there. Not the governor, I'm so sorry. What do they call her? Not the president, Prime Minister. She was incredible. She was so like comforting, but also, look, this is what we're doing. This is the rules. And everyone there was really excited. They were like, okay, we're all on the same team. We're going to, get rid of this virus as a country. Whereas back in the States, we were watching a lot of fighting, and it was political, and do we wear masks? Do we not wear masks? And so it was really, honestly, like in my opinion, it was a nice experience over there. We were quarantined for 6 weeks with 10 people from all different countries around the world. And we had more fun getting to know them. And we had every week we had a culture night where we had Bangladesh food one night, we had Filipino food another night. And so it was a really neat experience. And then when we came back, it was back to kind of more of like the political chaos and everything, obviously 2020. But for me, it was fine because we were still transitioning. We didn't really live anywhere. We're kind of in between my family in Oklahoma and his family in California. So it was interesting. It was very interesting coming back and just kind of being thrown in the middle of COVID still.
Yeah, I think having that flexibility definitely played in your favor, because you're not worried so much of like, oh, like my house, what am I going to do with my mortgage, or what am I going to do about this and that? Like a lot of families were scrambling during that time. Yeah. Even myself, I relocated during COVID from the Bay Area, and that was in itself just such a wild experience. And that's like, what, 2 hours away from us? So
yeah.
It's crazy how when you talk to people that were in different parts of the world during COVID, how it affected them differently, and their experiences were so different. And especially when it's out of the US. So I can definitely, when you mentioned all the differences, I'm like, yeah, you guys are very lucky that you were here during the whole time. So
yeah, we were almost in a very secluded bubble in New Zealand. And then we flew into LA International, and it was kind of like, oh, okay, we're not in a bubble anymore. Very different experience. But yeah. But overall, we always say, we've been really blessed throughout COVID that it hasn't really I guess like hit us in a negative way very bad. We were already in transition and trying to figure out where to live. And so I guess it kind of hit us as we were moving. So that worked out, which is I'm grateful for, because I know not everyone can say that. So
Absolutely. Let's talk about mindset. So obviously it takes a very strong mindset to do, not just the lifestyle you have, but also the business model that you have. And a lot of people, especially when they're new to business, there's a lot of limiting beliefs and things that hold them back, a lot of blockages that could be, cleared out through whether it's energy healing or overall just like chakra clearing. I'm a huge fan of chakra clearing because
yes.
you notice a difference. Like I'll just mention a little story. Lately, I've been feeling like my root chakra was kind of off, and I'm like, man, like I got to do something about this. It's really just making me have this stuck feeling that I don't enjoy having. And so let me just pull it out for you really quick. So I have this workbook. Let's see if you can see it. This chakra.
Oh, I like that.
Activity book and journal. And I'm like, hey, this comes in handy because since I was a little kid, I've always loved workbooks. That's just my type A personality. I like filling things out and going through this. And I have essential oils for each chakra.
Yes.
And it totally, oh my gosh, I can't even tell you, like, as soon as I did some meditations and I did the root chakra portion and the essential oils, wow, like it felt like I had like a reset. I'm like, I feel like I just came out of therapy. Like that was such a release. I did this at like 6 a.m. before my son woke up, and it was like the best. So is there anything that you do for your own personal practice of what helps you stay grounded? If you're, especially during COVID, it's hard to have like a positive mindset with what's to come. So what are some tips that you can offer our listeners on what you do on a daily basis or periodically?
Yeah. First of all, I love everything you said. I'm going to have to look up that activity book because I'm constantly, I'm constantly checking in with the different chakras and what feels blocked. But I would say, I think it's pretty common, you set your day up for success with your morning routine. So I start with a really solid routine in the morning, but then what has made the biggest difference for me, especially since most of us are working from home, is I wish I would have done more of this in my office when I worked an office job. But about once an hour, my Fitbit dings me. So that's my sign. Whatever I'm doing, I stop, I get up, and I either do like hip circles, or I throw on Shakira and I do a little dance and walk, if nothing else, walk circles around the house to get my steps in. And just those little, like, I don't know, maybe it's 5-minute break. It's not very long, but like 5-minute breaks of movement totally recharge me. And it definitely has like a huge effect. Whereas before, after an hour, 2 hours, I need a nap, or I'm like groggy. But if that little bit of movement at the top of the hour, I'm like ready to go. I'm staying more hydrated because I get up, I go fill my water, I go to the restroom. Just adding in movement to my day has made such a big difference. And then, of course, in the afternoon, I go for a longer 1-hour walk. But I tell all my clients, I'm like, you can't, I think because of the way we were raised in school, we have this idea that, okay, I'm going to sit down and work for 8 hours and I'm not moving until I get it done. And that doesn't actually serve us, especially when talking holistically, right? Your mentality and you're feeding your spirit, like all of that in your body, it's all connected. And we have to give your body a break from hunched over a keyboard with shoulders clenched, So I recommend movement as much as possible, for sure.
That's great. That's a really great tip, especially right now, everyone is working from home. So they're thinking, okay, yes, I work from my house now, but I need to still bring that work culture back here where it's like 8 hours in front. And, that's where I'm so thankful of the type of, businesses that we have now is like, okay, if I want to take a 15-minute break or whatever, I'm able to do so. I don't have to like worry about clocking in and out and, am I going to miss a phone call from a customer or whatever? It's just, this is where I really give my gratitude to like the universe. I'm like, thank you, because I would be miserable if I had that type of position. And it's so true that that's how we're programmed since we were little. And which is why I'm such a fan of schools like Montessori. I went to Montessori as in elementary school, and I planned for that for my son too, because I'm telling you, that boy has like ants in his pants. Like he cannot sit still. Even if he went to a school where he had to be at his desk, it just wouldn't work. Like he would just be like, no. But at the same time, I'm like, thank God he's not okay with just sitting there for like hours on end, because I can tell he has a very creative soul. That's why like when I look at your art behind you, I'm like, I feel like my son would do something like that when he's older. Like he's just so like free spirit. And I love that about him. But yeah, I think the notifications, I mean, I love technology as well that tell you like, oh, like go get your steps in. I mean, I'm guilty of not, and this is where I need to be more accountable for myself. Like I get notifications on my Apple Watch, like, oh, do you need to take a breath? You know, do you need to take a break? And so, I mean, most likely I'm in the middle of something. So I'm like, oh, I'll do it later. You know, like I just put it off. But I need to commit to just being like, no, like this is your reminder. Stop what you're doing and go. Like, you know, go take a walk. Yeah.
It is hard because you want to go, oh, well, let me finish this. But I've gotten to where if I say that and I just ignore it, then another hour goes by. So, I mean, almost instantly. And so I do, and I kind of feel into my body because I do tend to, I think we all do, but I tend to clench my shoulders and, you know, just your wrist from typing. So yeah, even like I said, even just like 2 minutes, just getting a little bit of movement in, then I can come back to that project and finish it with a renewed sense of energy. So yeah.
So true. Have you done, I know there's like certain yoga poses that help moving stuck energy. Have you done that before?
Yeah. So I do yoga most work days. Either I kind of been switching it around to keep my energy up actually. I really like doing it first thing in the morning. It gets me really like, those are like my power days. If I have my morning journaling and then go into morning yoga, I think that's like the best way to start my day. But sometimes because I don't have time, I'll do like an afternoon yoga. And that's really helpful. Like I said, because after sitting all day, you know, I can get the move the energy out of my shoulders and into my lower body, because when you're sitting, your lower body's just kind of dead weight a lot of times. So yeah, I've been playing with a lot of like I don't know. I use Boho Beautiful on YouTube. I followed her for years. She's my favorite yoga instructor. I feel like she's like my personal yoga instructor. I love her so much. But she has different ones for like relieving back tension. Like I just did one actually yesterday for PMS. And it was one of those days where I was just like, I don't want to move. I don't want to do anything. And it was a gentle PMS yoga. And oh my gosh, I just felt so better afterwards. And it was very much, you know, opening your hips, which, you know, carries the emotional center and your sacral chakra. And it was gentle, but afterward I felt like this huge emotional release that had left my body. And it's beautiful because I wasn't trying to release it. I wasn't, what's the root of this emotion or what, you know, it just happened naturally. And I think that's the beautiful thing with our bodies, is that they're so integrated with our mindset, with our, you know, our spirit, everything. So, yeah.
I feel like we're twins because that was me yesterday. I swear,
No way!
like I literally, I'm in sync with the moon cycle, and I was just like, man, right now, like I was having trouble doing anything yesterday. I'm like, you know what? I need to move because otherwise, I'm just gonna feel like a boulder. Like it's not fun.
Yeah.
You don't want to spend your day feeling like that. So yeah. So I actually left the house, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna grab some of my favorite food just to like lift up my moods, and it totally worked just to get moving. So
yes. So it's those small actions I found. It's never because you know, initially I had like a lot of emotion come out of nowhere, and I was like, do I need to journal it out? But I found a lot of times it's just a small thing. Go for a walk, or like go get your favorite food. That's a great idea. You know, it doesn't always have to be. I think my tendency, it's like, okay, I need a half day to get to the root of this problem. Well, it doesn't always have to be that.
Thank you for reminding those that, especially me, because sometimes I feel like that too. I'm just like, oh, it has to be like, I got to block out my calendar and I got to go. But really, it is the small things. It's always in the little details. And I need to put that on a post-it just on the wall, just like a little visual reminder. So No, that is awesome. Gosh, you have so much knowledge to share. And I love that you're a self-published author and it did so well when it released, even though you weren't quite ready. But obviously, the universe was like, who cares if it's the raw version and you weren't intending to sell? Here's some, abundance for that. Like, I think that's amazing. So please share with our listeners on where they can find you online if they want to work with you, checking out your books. And I love supporting every guest that comes on the show. So I will definitely snag a copy of each. So where can everyone find you online?
Absolutely. Well, I will say for you, since you like activity books, you would probably more enjoy Brazenly Beautiful, which is a journal, the basics on getting clear and confident in your life's journey. So if you do, let me know what you think about it. But otherwise, my brand is The Sparkling Hippie, which is super memorable. Everybody always remembers that. So www.thesparklinghippie.com. I'm on Instagram at The Sparkling Hippie and Facebook as well at The Sparkling Hippie. And it's hippie with an IE. So I would love if your listeners do find me, please reach out, send me a DM. I really like personal connection, getting to know who's listening and who's following and all of that. So yeah.
Amazing. Yes. I can't wait to dive more into your content. And for me, I've noticed a trend whenever I meet people through the show, we just become besties. So
well, I hope so. I hope so. Well, good. Awesome. This has been so great. Thank you so much for having me, Shane.
Of course. No, thank you for coming onto the show. And everyone, please check out all of Haley's social media links in the description box below, and we'll catch you all next time. Thank you, everyone.